Thank you for being patient. Our speaker just walked in. The last speaker just walked in. She's had a long day in court, as of some of you, and some of you have had a long day at work. Please switch your phones off or put it on silent. And anytime we ask a question or you have anything to say, please use the mic. Yeah, we'll pass it around. So this session has been a long time coming. I think I have sent several messages and messages only, no, to all the three panelists over the last year, saying we're doing it now, when are you free, and will this work, and will that work, and with their busy schedules and some personal crisis at my end, finally we are here today. Thank you so much for coming and making this happen. This is a session that I've been wanting to have for a very long time. I think most of us who take up the law at some level, we think we want to take up the law to change the world, make a difference, with some idealism. Yeah, it's a different matter that some of us lose the idealism or we choose something else which is less difficult or tough. I do find three examples of lawyers who have walked a very hard path, not that the rest of you don't walk a hard path, but this is difficulty of another level. So I'm very happy to have Aarti Mundkur, Dr. Aarti Mundkur, Maitreyi Krishnan and Ashwini Obalesh with us here. Before I just call them on, just a line about what Chavadi does. We are a bipartisan platform. We try and provide a safe space for women litigators to have conversations about things that interest them, be it, maybe we can have a conversation about the menstrual leave policy next, you know, given that that's the flavor of the season. We've had conversations on systemic bias. We've had conversations about financial planning, mental health. We've had conversations about how to be an arbitrator and all of this. Today's session is on walking the talk, social lawyering. Without much ado, I'm inviting the three of them and I'll introduce them briefly, each of them. Can we have all three of you on, please? See, wherever you sit, we'll start with you. So. We have Dr. Aarti Mundkur. Aarti Mundkur has a background in law and social sciences. Aarti is a founding member of the Alternative Law Forum, Bengaluru, where she spent a number of years working broadly in the area of women and violence. She subsequently set up her own legal practice as a litigator in various courts for over 18 years. Her main areas of litigation include family law, juvenile justice, and criminal law. Aarti's research interests encompass themes of conjugality, gender, and family law. The state of legal aid in India has long concerned her, and her practice has been dedicated to ensuring competent representation for individuals who are often underserved in the courtroom. Further, she's keen to explore areas of law that affect and impact diverse, marginalized communities, thereby centering questions of their access to the legal system. Aarti has a BA in economics from Mumbai University. Was it Mumbai University or Bombay University? Mumbai University, and an MA in social work from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. She completed her LLB from Bangalore University and her PhD from NLSIU, Bengaluru. Incidentally, when she enrolled at the State Bar Council, I was there to cheer her on. She reads crime novels and watches cricket in her spare time, and she also has an interest in saris and jewelry, which she has not mentioned. Ashwini Obalesh. Ashwini is an advocate practicing before the High Court of Karnataka. Ashwini has a BA LLB honors degree and an LLM degree from the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore. She is the recipient of the Vikram Singh Gold Medal for Young Leader of the Year during her BA LLB honors and the Sitaram Jindal Foundation Gold Medal during her LLM. She has worked in diverse legal arenas such as the corporate, public policy, litigation, and legal activism over the past decade. Ashwini has also been associated with several women and child rights-based organizations and has worked on their projects in various capacities as legal advisor, advocate, volunteer. She is a visiting professor at the National Law School. Ashwini runs Dhwani Legal Trust, an organization that provides legal aid, especially to women who are victims of violence and to persons from poor and marginalized communities, thereby empowering them to establish their rights. And just to, since we were talking about age, just to define the age gap here, apparently, I don't remember, but Ashwini claims that when she was in the first standard, we were in the same school, I was in the 10th standard, and I used to go to her class to mind them. I mean, all the 10th standard students would go to monitor this thing. I mean, of course, I got like triple, quadruple promotion, so that's the only explanation, no? Third speaker today is Maitreyi Krishnan. She graduated from the ILS Law College, Pune, and has been practicing as an advocate before the High Court of Karnataka from the year 2007. Maitreyi practices largely on the labor side, representing workmen and unions. She's actively involved in organizing workers, leading protests, and campaigning for workers' rights. She's the co-founder of Manthan Law, an independent legal practice. She's the state secretary of the All India Central Council of Trade Unions. She's also the president of the All India Lawyers Association for Justice, an association of lawyers across the country which aims to challenge the contemporary order and push the boundaries of the law to realize the dream of an egalitarian world. Thank you, Maitri, for being here. I know it was a long day. Did all your matters reach? Yes. Okay, perfect. That's a good thing. So how this is going to work is we're just going to poke each of the speakers to, say something about themselves, and then we'll have a small tete-a-tete with them, and then we throw it open for questions, yeah? I'll give you this mic. Please feel free to pass it around. Should I get started?
Damn it. Oh, who are you asking first? Is she in the frame?
Only you are in the frame.
Damn it. Nidhi, just move closer. Above.
So we start with our topic itself. Now, each of you have chosen to do something to do with social justice. It's become a way of life. And it's been several decades that each of you have looked into, made various lifestyle choices in terms of, the kind of work that you will do. Has there been a defining moment, either during childhood, early influences, the schools that you went to, or has there been any particular thing, incident that has inspired you to walk the path that you are? Open to all.
I think very early influences were from one particular teacher in school. And I think he pretty much defined at that age and subsequently for many years to come. He incidentally told my parents when I was in standard 7 that I would be a lawyer. And when I finished standard 12, he said, "Are you writing NLS entrance exam?" And I said, "I don't want to be a lawyer." And then I did a BA in economics, and he said, "So are you enrolling for the LLB?" And I said, "I'm not interested in being a lawyer." So I did a master's in social work. I came back to Bangalore. I was at the Alternative Law Forum for about 5 years. And then I very grudgingly picked up the phone and I called him and said, I'm enrolling for the LLB. And he said, "Don't make it sound like you are doing this for me." But I think he pretty much very, very closely informed views in the world, I would say, at a very young age. And I think that stayed with me through college, for sure. And it's definitely what pushed me to do the master's in social work. I think that was the path that I was pretty much going down. And at TISS, apparently no longer at TISS with events that have happened in the past, say, 7, 8 years. But when I was there, it was very much a place that threw you in the deep on many fronts. So you were in very, very uncomfortable, when I say uncomfortable, I mean situations that you would not otherwise find yourselves in or put yourselves in, whether it was with people who were addicted, whether it was HIV positive people, whether it was in slums in Bombay, with forest dwellers in Borivali's National Park. So you were constantly in a location that was pushing you to question where you came from and the privilege that you came with. And I think that by the end of those 2 years, I think there were things that were also beginning to more or less decide the journey that I would go down. And I think, yeah, I think those were the initial influences. The decision to study law pretty much came after a number of years at the Alternative Law Forum. I wasn't a lawyer when at the Alternative Law Forum in 2000. I still only had a degree in social work. And I think just being around a bunch of lawyers constantly and watching the ability to get certain things done despite the pace of it and despite the very incremental and slow progress, pretty much sealed that kind of sort of decision. And it was remarkably easy to get a degree in law. It's the easiest degree that I've done, right? I mean, I went to Sheshadripuram Law College. I wasn't in college. I was at Alternative Law Forum all the time. I would show up, I would write some exams. Apparently, I passed those exams. So all the learning of the law did not happen in a law college at all. It happened because I was around a bunch of people who were doing legal things all the time. And that's where the learning happened. It certainly didn't happen in law college, so yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't think there was any defining moment really about which actually told me, okay, you're going to be a lawyer or you're going to work for something that your heart feels must be worked for. But today I do have an uncle who tells me that it could be my past karma in which has really pushed me to do some social work because of something I've done in the past. I have that uncle. Yeah, it's penance, I think. And today I have a brother who says, who very strongly believes that I hate money, which I don't know, I don't have an opinion on that. But yeah, he believes that anything I do, I don't look at the money aspect at all, which is false, but that's the brother I have. So, I mean, thinking back and really thinking about these things, Aarti and I were just discussing before this talk began that I don't think we've ever thought about this. Rather, we've always done. So I think would define myself as a doer more than a thinker. So these questions actually are making me think on the spot. So I believe they are right from my heart. So I think doing law, again, was not a decision that I made. I wrote all the exams after my 12th. I wrote my AIEEE, IIT, NLS entrance, and several other exams. I got into IIT Chennai, and that's when there were some news articles about suicides in IIT Chennai. And my parents said, no, you're not going there. So that was the only reason. And secondly, they said, oh, IIT Chennai versus NLS Bangalore, because you'll be in Bangalore. So that was really the motivation that drew my parents to enroll me into law school. But I think after I started studying law is when I fell absolutely in love with it. And the law itself, law school itself opened my mind in several unimaginable ways. And I got introduced to all these social justice angles, I think, in law school. I think as all of us would have. And I think that was a very important turning point of my life. So that I think everything is retrospect for me. Like it somehow organically worked out, and thinking back, I'm like, okay, that's why I did this. So I don't think there was a defining point, but what actually made me start Dhwani as a legal aid organization while being a lawyer who could have earned, in my brother's words, several lakhs by now, is so when I started practicing with Professor Ravi Verma Kumar. So I deem him to be my mentor. And he did, apart from practice, and I think he's done about 30,000 odd cases till today. I think, I don't know if anyone's counting, but that's the least, I think that's the minimum number he's done. And most of them, I think, pro bono. He's worked for people from tribal communities, from Dalit communities, etc. So when I started working with him, and I worked with him for 4 years, I think that's when the idea really came to me that I must start something dedicated to human rights practice. And that's how it's happened. So I think, to long story short, it all has worked out organically for me. I don't think I ever thought about these things, except that since school, I always thought I should help people. As a child, I always said I want to help people. And I believe today I'm doing that. Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for organizing this. And for, I know how you've been, how difficult it might be to coordinate with so many people and actually put this together. So thank you for this. I think, in terms of, I don't know, early influences, actually I never thought about law. I always wanted to do history. And I still say history is something that still fascinates me. But somehow I got into law. And during college, I interned in Alternative Law Forum in my second year, or maybe my first. Anyway, I interned in the Alternative Law Forum. And I think that was a very defining kind of moment because of the kind of experience that we have then. The one, it was that time, actually, I was introduced to Dr. Ambedkar. I had a copy of Annihilation of Caste that was given. And in many ways, it made me think about my own privileges, think about my own, perhaps my responsibility towards, what, if there is something wrong in society, what is it that we are supposed to do? And coming from privilege, what is it that one is to do? I think, it kind of made you think about it. And the Alternative Forum itself is a very kind of, you get so much, varied kind of experiences that you have over there. And it was at that point of time, I think there were a lot of slum demolitions that were happening. And, just thinking about, because we are always, even when we are at school, you're taught, there's such a classist way of thinking about it, such an elitist way of thinking about slums, as if there's something wrong with the people, as if there's something wrong, as if it's the people's mistake. And it's so internalized, this classist understanding of poverty is so internalized. And I think at that point of time, there were a lot of demolitions that were happening, and we were working on that. And even in terms of the language, you call them encroachers. You're effectively criminalizing poverty, you're criminalizing deprivation. So that kind of thing actually, I think it made me think about what to do. And I suppose from there on, the only places, I might have come back to Alternative Law Forum to intern like a couple of times after that. And then, many things started. But that's kind of the beginning of it. And of course, then I joined the Communist Party, and I'm a member of the CPI-ML. And that really, I think, maybe the defining moments happened much later in life than like kind of early influences. But that really changed the way I think, changed the way I look at the world and what responsibility of people within this world are.
Just taking off on that, now doing the kind of work that you do, social lawyering, I'd like to use the term social lawyering for a better phrase. Please correct me if that doesn't work. This work demands an enormous amount of time, emotional bandwidth, financial constraints, etc. So how have you consciously structured your personal life, or has there been conscious adjustments you've had to make to make this sort of work sustainable for you? To all of you.
So I've been extraordinarily lucky, right? I've had an extraordinarily supportive family. When I mean family, I mean primarily my mother, whose only insistence and from a raised by a grandfather, because when I was born, my parents were extraordinarily busy. My mother was just setting up a practice after moving from Delhi to Bangalore, and things were really difficult. And so I was pretty much raised by my grandparents, mostly my grandfather, whose only condition was to me when I was in my early 20s was that you have to earn your own living. And you can't be dependent on a man, whether you are married to him or not, or whatever your equation might be, to buy your clothes. And so you do what you want, you do whatever you want to do in life, but you have to be able to earn your own living, which didn't quite fit with Alternative Law Forum's plan, because when I joined the Alternative Law Forum, I think we were all being paid about 3,500 rupees a month, right? So, my mother was quite understanding of this idea that I had with what I wanted to do. And the fact is that I come from extraordinary privilege. There is no saying it differently. There is no not acknowledging it. It is a fact, right? And when I mean privilege, I mean the privilege of caste. I mean the privilege of coming from parents who have worked extremely hard to give their kids a really great education. So, you know, all of those things were very, very accessible to us. And from a very, very progressive family, right? So people, my mother's sisters are married outside of their religions, across caste lines. And so these were not battles that were internal for me. There was no extraordinary mountain to overcome or anything like that. So any decisions that I made have been purely mine. I haven't been given a mandate to be married or have children, or these were not the battles that I had to fight. My grandfather had fought those battles on my behalf already, you know. So I could pretty much do what my heart desired in that sense. So the difficulty certainly is, and I think this is what I feel now as I'm growing older, is if you've made the choices that you have made, then you have to be able to, in some way, take care of yourself as you grow older. And that has been, I think, a concern of mine now, only very recently. I'd say over the past maybe 4 or 5 years. Until then, it was pretty much, you know, you're doing okay, you're leading a comfortable life, it's not like you're struggling for basics and things like that. And not that you're making lakhs of rupees a month or anything like that. You're still managing, you're still walking a bit of a fine line, keeping your own office running and doing all these things, but it's not taking some great toll on you, and you know, you're not, but at some point of time, I think I started to get a little concerned about what the savings were and how I would navigate an older life. And I think those have been concerns that have only come to me in the last 4 or 5 years. Until then, it's not something I even thought about, or it wasn't a preoccupation or anything like that. I don't know if, so I can't say for myself that there have been some extraordinary sacrifices. I don't think there have been, personally. I don't think I have given up anything or any other way of life that I thought would have been better for me or in some way more comfortable. I live extremely comfortably, and I always have, whether it has been in my mother's home or whether it has been when I've lived away from her, right? So I can't really say that there have been those kinds of challenges. That hasn't been my experience at all. But what has, I think, what I do see in a lot of younger people today is it's a very different world to be 22 today. And by that I mean just the level of uncertainty of everything around you. Employment, the meaning of higher education, collapsing of institutions all around you, a particular sort of environment in politics, and a particular very enforced ideology. It's a melting pot of concerns that I don't think that was so sharp. I mean, they existed, but they weren't so sharply defining, right? And I think it's harder to make this decision today. I don't think it's gotten any easier to make it. It was much easier to do it in 2000 or 1998 or 1999. I think these are difficulties that have just grown, right? Inequity has grown, right? What it takes to put together a bare minimal existence, and I'm talking about the absolute bare minimum, right, is so much harder than it was, say, 25, 30 years ago. So the environment that you're in is extraordinarily more challenging than what it was. So I would imagine that it would be, so that is on one side. Of course, it would be very, very difficult to make these kinds of decisions if you either made choices or if you had the obligation to support families, right? If you had parents who were dependent on you, or you decided to have children who were dependent, who you needed to raise, and so on, I would imagine that I'm not saying that I wouldn't have done the same thing, but it's very hard for me to guess what I would have done. I don't know.
I'm just going to hold on to Aarti for a bit longer before I come to the two of you. There are, for the audience, Aarti was doing, when she was doing her master's in social work, and then she co-founded Alternative Law Forum, so that's a pivot in her life. And then after the Alternative Law Forum, after working with it for X number of years, she became a practicing lawyer with the Alternative Law Forum, and then she started her independent practice. And after being an independent practitioner for over a decade,
yeah, definitely more than that. Yeah,
she's now
15 years. Yeah,
an academic. She's now faculty at the National Law School. So, Aarti, I want to know: did any of these pivots, were any of these influenced by, again, economic circumstance, or any sacrifice? Sacrifice may seem like a very strong word for you, because you do say that you come from privilege, etc. But at the end of the day, it is a choice you're making, right?
So I mean, the choice to leave ALF was rather whimsical, I have to say, in hindsight. Didn't seem like it then, but it seemed rather was almost whimsical to see whether I could actually sustain my own practice. It just came with that thing of, can I do this on my own, and should I do it on my own? So it came with that. I should also say that it did come with the idea that I wanted to make a little bit more money. There is really no doubt about that, right? Which I did. I mean, I did make more money in my private practice than I made at the Alternative Law Forum. I think my last drawn salary at Alternative Law Forum was about 27,300 or something like that, right, in a month. So that was definitely the case. But the pivot from the practice to this position at NLS was driven, I think, by a couple of things. One is that I think I got extraordinarily bored and tired of being a family law practitioner. I was like, I don't want to do this. And it took me years to make the decision. I didn't wake up one morning and say, I don't want to do this. It was years. It was like 2 years. I was like, every day I'm going to family court. This is what is keeping my house and my office running. It's true. It's those matters that are paying my office rent. It's those matters that are paying my house rent. It's those matters that are putting petrol in the car, whatever it might be. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do it anymore. It is not making me any happier a person. It is making, and the nature of the work is that, right? It's emotionally draining. what is expected of from your clients is plus that of a lawyer. You are also part therapist, part email composer. If this email comes from my husband, will you vet my reply? I don't want to do this. I just don't. That's it. So I was like, if I don't want to do this, then I'm going to have to find a source of income. There's only one other thing I can do, which is to teach. Unfortunately, I'm not multi-talented in the sense of, okay, you're not lawyer, tomorrow you can be artist or you can be something else. I'm not. I wish I had those talents. I don't. So I was like, there's only one thing to do. And it just so happened, I mean, the coincidence of finishing the PhD while I had been practicing dovetailed quite nicely. When I say dovetailed, it just so happened that NLS was making a call for a certain number of vacancies, and I said, let me take a chance and apply. I didn't think I'd get it because you have people with very, very fancy degrees applying to the National Law School. These are people who have PhDs from Cambridge and Harvard and Yale and people who have spent their life in academics. So I didn't think that I'd get it. But when I did, I said, okay, let's give this a shot. The verdict is still out. I've been there only a year. I don't know that if there is going to be not another pivot back to practice. It could well be. But the good part about that is, and this is what I mean by privilege. This is exactly where that privilege shows, right? That I can actually sit back and make these. I mean, sure, I have made decisions for myself that allow me to make these pivots, which is a result of a certain privilege. So it all kind of comes back in this circle. So I can sit here and say, maybe I'll just come back to practice and start all over again or whatever. And I can afford to do that, right? So because I don't have these kinds of obligations and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it was just a question of let's try it. And of course, even in my job at NLS, I've just been made director of clinics. There are 5 clinics, legal aid clinics, that NLS proposes to set up and run. So I'm still doing parts of what I have been doing in an earlier avatar in that sense as well. So it's not like but yeah, I mean, do I miss certain days of being a litigator? Sure. I mean, there are days when I wake up and I say it'd be great to go to court and argue something instead of, teaching in a classroom and so on. So yeah, I mean, some of it has been, like this pivot was definitely very, very consciously made. Like it took me 2 years to make the decision, and I made it, knowing full well what I was giving up. And I really wanted to try something completely different. And I know that if I come back to practice, if I make that decision, which I don't know, I will not be a family lawyer. I'm very clear about this, right? I will do every other kind of practice. At some point of time, I was telling somebody, replace my MC files with MVC files. I will do it. I will do anything. Just don't send me to family. Even with my colleagues, I was like, send me anywhere. I will drive to Devanhalli Sessions Court for a matter if you need me to go, but don't send me into family court. So I had reached that point, that threshold of saying, I'm done. This is not what I want to do. Yeah.
Coming back to Ashwini and Maitreyi about emotional bandwidth and the choices that you have made, circumstance or choice, and any personal sacrifice or financial sacrifice both of you have made or have had to make.
Before I start, I want to say I'm not very happy that my colleagues are sitting here in the same room in which Aarti says she wants to stop going to family court. So I invited Aarti to give us some jugaad tips, because we keep trying very hard to do certain things in court and then keep failing. And still we stand up the next day and still we go to the same court and get slapped and again come back and again go back. So I made the mistake of calling Aarti to give us jugaad tips, and then she said, I'm done with practice. And I was just hoping my colleagues are not listening to her. So, okay, I mean, I love Aarti, so joke. Okay. So, No, on privilege, I think I am also extremely privileged in the sense that I had parents who did not, I didn't have a caregiving obligation. I don't, actually. And my parents were extremely and are extremely supportive of all my life choices. So I think that is long story short. So I don't think I had the difficulty of choosing. So I think between 18 and 28, I've experimented everything. So in law. So I started working in a corporate law firm in Bombay. And I think, Purnima is sitting here. And before I worked with Purnima in Samvad, Bangalore, I worked with Vinita in Samvad, Bombay. And she's also ex-NLS, 1998 batch. And horrifying, but excellent boss. I was so scared of her, yet I believe that she made me an excellent lawyer. So that's how it started. So I went to corporate, and then I came to Bangalore to work in Samvad, Bangalore. So the work that I did in Samvad, Bombay was project finance, etc., banking and project finance, because Vinita was into that. Then I shifted to Bangalore, and with Harish Narsappa and Purnima Hatti, I did a lot of VC, did a lot of private equity and general corporate law matters. And then I went to Harish Narsappa one day and said, sir, I think I want to take a break. I want to try UPSC. And then he said, Hogamma, Madu. If you want to come back, my doors are open. And I'm still extremely grateful to him. So I've had like lovely bosses till date, actually, touch wood. And I said, I took that advice very seriously, and I actually hooked. And I tried UPSC for 2 years. I attempted, my prelims, got through, wrote my mains, but didn't make it to the interview. And then I said, UPSC is not good enough for me. Rather, I'm not good enough for UPSC. With all that, arrogance, I walked out. And I said, okay, what can I do next? And then I texted one of my seniors from law school, Vikram Hegde, who's currently AOR in Delhi, saying which senior advocate is nice enough to allow me to study for UPSC and give me glimpses of practice. He said, Ravi Verma Kumar is very good, go to him. And that's the rationale for my decision to walk into Sir's office. So I've tried everything. And while I was studying for UPSC, I worked with NGOs. I've gone to some hundreds of schools in Bangalore, outside Bangalore, spoken about POXO, etc. So I had the privilege of experimenting. So I'm really grateful for that today, because looking back, I think all these experiences have been extremely valuable. And while navigating through these experiences is when I noticed and rather observed and introspected about my own privilege. Although I don't have caste privilege, I do have class privilege, and I was born in Bangalore, brought up in an extremely comfortable setting. So that way I got to experiment everything. So there, I think similarity with Aarti in terms of complete support from my parents. And even when I started Dhwani, the only question they asked me is, how are you going to sustain? They, of course, had been supporting me all along, and I said, okay, we'll figure it out. So it's always been, oh, I'll figure it out, and somehow I've reached there. And through this also, it is important to mention that I also have an extremely understanding partner. So I have an extremely understanding partner, so he works with me. So we started Dhwani together. He has been there since the beginning, but always in the shadows, which has also been great. We've also been, I've been very lucky that way to have a support system around me. But in terms of sustaining, that is definitely a challenge. I think when we started when I started off independent, I, of course, didn't have my own. I had savings that I had made from my corporate life, but I knew I was juggling something very new. So when I started, of course, didn't have the money to pay rent, etc., but still did private practice, paid rent for the office, etc. So that's how it started. So money was definitely a concern, but I knew I could always fall back upon parents, fall back upon brother, fall back upon a family. So that privilege has always been there. But now, in order to sustain, so the initial years were extremely tough because so the cycle was I didn't have enough money. I was not making enough money in order to pay salaries. So much work that I needed people to work. So that was a cycle that we were stuck in. And somehow that broke. I mean, we got institutional funding at some point after 4 to 5 years of setting up Dhwani and self-funding. I mean, through this also there have been days where a client has said, I have to pay PG rent, kindly give me money, and I have really paid from my pocket. So, and I'm thinking back, I'm like, where did I have the money from, or this, like, where does this come from? Why am I so crazy? But all of that, I think, has been extremely valuable in actually my current setting. So, currently, we are institutionally funded. So, we have at least 2 institutions which are funding, which means that we're able to pay salaries. So, now we have a team of 12 people who are doing pro bono work every day of their lives, extremely passionately. Don't talk to them. So that's where we are, and I'm really grateful for that, because we were just discussing, it's a delusion that we need to go hit ourselves against the system, come back, fall, come back, and again tomorrow go hit ourselves against the same system, which is so closed in so many ways. But I'm really grateful that I have a team now that all of us really hit very hard, and we hit really hard. So because, I mean, the challenge also is that you know somewhere is going to fail. Like, you know that it is going to be that same judge who will throw out your petition and say, you're a woman, you're getting, like, you don't need maintenance. Or why have you not produced so-and-so statement, which is extremely technical and still, like, really, like, does injustice to the case. But still, we go and hit ourselves hard against that wall itself again. So that way, finances has definitely not been a challenge for me. I think I should be very candid and say that. But what has been a challenge is to sustain an organization, to sustain it in a way that the shared passion is actually alive every day. So that is the daily challenge, and I'm quite glad that we're meeting that challenge. We take it by the day, but we're doing quite fabulously.
I'm just going to hold on to another question.
Yeah.
You talked about institutional funding, right? So somehow I'm of the opinion that funders always have an implicit agenda. So how do you insulate yourself from the agenda of, no matter how well-intentioned the funder is, right? They always have some goals that they necessarily have to meet. So have you faced that problem, or have you somehow managed to, you know, liberate yourself from the funder expectation of what they want you to do?
So I don't think that's been a challenge till now, at least because we have never actively fundraised. Even the fundraising has organically happened. We've never gone out there, written a proposal and tried to do it. So till now, our funders have been, have left us independent in that sense. So there have not been any clauses which say, you know, practice like this, practice like that, till now. So it's been a very, very new experience for us also, fundraising. So right now we're fine, I believe. But I feel that we need to keep diversifying our funding in a way that helps us sustain, even if a certain funder backs out. So that's also what we are trying to negotiate every day. Because currently our funders, like, we have extremely different kinds of funders. One funder needs exact reports, like how many cases have you done this year, how many cases are pending, how many have you disposed of, etc. And the other funder says, no problem, you give us a grant utilization certificate and where it's gone into, and if it's gone into salaries, rent, we don't care, just give us that. So this is the diversity of funders that we are seeing, and it's a very new thing for us also. But as of now, I don't think we've ever been in a compromising position in terms of taking up certain matters or not due to a funder's preference. So, and I believe that that's how it's going to be. And anytime a funder says something that could dictate a certain politics of the organization, I think that's where we will end that. And I hope we will reach a place where we diversify our funding in a way that we can still sustain that situation. So because I think the work that we also do, some of the matters I do extremely quietly because there is so much politics in that petitioner. And which is why, and somehow the newspaper picks it up. I don't know how, like I will divulge details later, but we had a matter recently till 2 weeks ago where the client really got into trouble because the newspaper picked it up. And I don't know where they're watching from. And because of that, we've gotten into a very complex situation now. And that's where we are. But those are the politics we're also dealing with. So I believe that we want to be an organization which does not depend on a funder in a way that our politics is defined by them. So that's where we are right now. It's a very good place to be, but I really hope we are there for a long time. Yeah.
Maitri, coming back to...
I think I'm in a kind of similar position as both. In that one, I have a very supportive family who has not only supported but kind of encouraged, independent thinking, pushing the boundaries and things like that. In fact, when I was in school in my 9th or 10th, my dad gave me a book called The Female Eunuch. I don't know if it is still popular. It's a very radical feminist kind of a book. So I mean, it's a very supportive family that I come from. So, it was, I think, it never felt like I was making a choice that, okay, should I do this or should I do that? It just felt like this is what should be done and, this is what I'm doing. So, I think, along with that, the fact that I come from class privilege, caste privilege, all that also allowed, it kind of gives a, what is that called? If you fall, then it will, like a buffer. Like if you fall, there's a net, there's a safety net there that's for you. So I must say that's where I come from. So it never, I don't think it ever occurred to me that I'm doing anything that is different from what other people are doing. And I think that's what privilege ultimately allows you to do. But once I came into this and the people that you're working with, you see the kind of sacrifices that are actually made. And while I come from privilege, my colleagues come in very difficult situations. And I see, my colleagues working, and for them, I suppose it's a choice. And it's a choice to say that, okay, I'm not going, and you have the ability, you have the possibility of making so much money, but you're actually not doing that. And to me, that is the sacrifice. And to me, that is something that actually stands out to say that, okay, here something is happening. And we work with trade unions, we work with workers, and you look at them, every day that you are actually fighting for right is a day that you are risking losing your job. So you're willing to take that risk with a family, with no safety net, to say that, okay, I'm going to stand up and fight for the rights of myself and everybody else, with the conscious decision that I might not have a job when I come back tomorrow. So if you're working with them, that's sacrifice. That's a choice that people are making, where you're choosing to do what is right and to do what is what should be done. So I think that's so like I said, this has never really seemed like something I'm doing very different or in that sense. But speaking about money, I think coming from privilege, coming from money, it's very difficult to have it's very, I don't know if it's right to have a kind of opinion about that. But I think, ultimately, when you see that there are so many people across the country, across the world who are doing these things, I think there is something to say about the fact that this has happened. You look at any of the rights that we have today, it's things that people have fought for in the past, because of which we continue, we kind of enjoy that. You look at our freedom struggle, I'm just thinking, like, if any of those people had said, okay, let me go after money, what would have happened to the country? What would have happened to the fight against colonialism? What would have happened to a fight for equality? Because they're all brilliant people. You look at any of the people who fought for freedom. So I'm not really sure when this became such a big, dichotomy in that sense. But having said that, like I said, I don't think I have the right in that sense to judge anybody or to speak about money, about whether to have money or not. we are our month-in-law, our organization is a completely unfunded, I mean, no institutional funded, not unfunded, but it's no institutional funding and no funding of any form. We are practice and whatever we earn from clients we have. So I very strongly believe the main reason that we are able to survive is because we represent workers. Workers know the value of labor and they always pay. Very often, but very, very rarely do workers not pay. Because they know what labor, what it means to work, what it means to labor, and the fact that it has a value. And so however little it might be, however much it might be, whatever it might be, that will always happen. So very, very infrequently will you have people who are not paying. When you have workers and the working class on whose cases we are doing. In fact, even before we ask, people will come and they will come with money. So I think that's something to say about that. Apart from that, we do cases where so that we can make some money. In the sense, so that we can run the organization. It's not so much so that you can make the money, so that we can run the office and we can run everything else. And I think that balance is something that that we go through every day. But the point is that the reason that we actually started the office is that we said that, okay, we believe in something, we believe in a political vision of society, we believe in a particular politics, and that politics has to be taken to the practice. So there are some things that we don't do. We don't do certain cases because it doesn't match with our politics. We will not represent management. We will not represent landlords in our tenancy matters. We will not. So there are some kind of cases that we simply don't do, and I think the idea was that we should be able to walk out. The reason that we are starting this practice is so that we can take our politics forward. We can use the knowledge of the law to kind of take that forward, and it is with that. With that intention that we started it, so that we very strongly we practice, and I must say that my colleagues, we have we three of us started the organization, and then the three of us started the office, and now we have about 7 or 8 of us are there, and I think people have come from really difficult situations, and when I see them, I feel, I mean, there's no question of doing anything else. So the point is also how do we, ultimately we have the knowledge of the law. So either we're doing this or we're doing something else. Ultimately with the knowledge of the law, what is it that one can do to be able to actually, I wouldn't say change society, but be able to stand with people who don't have, otherwise have access to the law itself, to access to justice itself. But we do see a bit differently from like how legal aid works, because we think of it, I mean, legal aid has a certain thing of, there is a kind of, you have a lawyer, you have a person who they're helping out. Because we are with the Communist Party, we work with the trade unions. So it is more, we are more of standing, and we're kind of playing one role of the complete system. So for example, if you're looking at any case that if you're doing of a worker, the fact of the matter is for the worker to have actually unionized itself was a huge struggle. Then they come to you. I mean, then they start something. Then they come to you. Then you move something. So you are like one kind of part of this whole. For them, the way I view it, the part of the larger struggle for justice. So you are one part of that that struggle that's there. And I think that role is what we play. So I think in that sense, I suppose that's a kind of little bit distinction that we see from how legal aid otherwise has been conceptualized, at least with the legal aid services and things like that. So yeah.
Just another follow-up for you. You were talking about privilege and how all three of you had privilege, and you also mentioned, or rather, have privilege, class privilege, whatsoever. You were talking about colleagues of yours who don't have that privilege. So do you think this acts as a gatekeeping mechanism, the fact that there's privilege? If I don't have the privilege, I'm not able to take part in social justice lawyering, or from what you see with your colleagues, it really doesn't matter?
No, I think privilege acts as a gatekeeping for almost everything in life, right? Which college you go to, which school you go to, which college, whether I can speak English, whether I can appear in the High Court. You might be absolutely brilliant, but you might not have studied in English medium school. So simply for that reason, you are not able to practice in the High Court, and it's in the higher courts that you get recognition and things like that. So privilege acts as a kind of gatekeeping keeping mechanism for every step in your life. I don't think there is any, I don't think we can run away from that. The fact that I'm sitting here also is the fact that I come from privilege. I can speak English, I can, you know, I can, I have the network of people who I know. So I think that privilege gatekeeps everything. But it is, for many people, and this is something a colleague of mine said, see, for people who come from difficult situations and who come from vulnerability, every day is actually a fight for social justice. Whether you're doing it in law, whether you're doing it in a formalized form, whether you're doing it in a protest, the very fact of living every day, going through that kind of injustice, fighting injustice, actually becomes a way of life. Because you're facing inequality, you're facing discrimination, you're facing harassment on an everyday basis. So then the very act of being is a kind of revolt, is a kind of revolution to that injustice. So I think that is something that, so given that every day you are going through that, I don't know if it's harder or more or difficult. I would say that definitely in terms of your own economic, of being able to grow financially, it definitely would be harder. But in some situations, I would imagine that it almost becomes default, because that's literally what you're doing. You're fighting for kind of just being and going forward, and that fight becomes so, so internalized that also something that you do. I mean, we are speaking here, but there are people who are working in the district, who are working in taluks, who are working in villages, who are doing this, whose name we might not know, but who are, really kind of pushing the boundaries. So I would imagine that definitely financially, it's difficult it would be difficult. I don't think there is any two ways about that. But I think, there are difficult choices that are made by them.
You're saying it wouldn't stop them from making this choice?
I've seen the people I've worked with, it hasn't stopped them, that's why they're still my coach. But it hasn't stopped them, but I'm saying that, but the lack of money is something that would in any way affect people.
Thank you. What I wanted to check or ask all three of you was, in the courtroom, all of you have had long stints, and two of you have longer stints in courtrooms. Has caste privilege played a role in terms of your appearances in court or your interaction with client? Probably we'll focus on that in terms of, when your client realizes that you are from a certain caste, or, you are from their caste, or, anything of that sort. Do you think they consider you as more capable, less capable, ally, or you're not in a position to help them because you will not understand?
I think definitely it plays a role. Yeah, definitely it plays. And the thing is that it's not, see, with caste privilege come so many things. The fact that you speak a particular language, you speak it with particular diction, you speak in a particular way. So I think it comes with so many things. So whether it is clients, definitely clients, it will play a role. People will come, and caste is so internalized, it is so made normal that people will come and then they will think, yes, so because you and many of us, because of our names, you can actually tell what caste you come from. So definitely, people will, they may not say that it is caste. They may say, oh, you speak so well. You may speak with your English is without, your grammar is so good. You put the comma in the right place. But what do those things mean ultimately? Law is not about the comma. If you have to be honest about it, law is not about grammar, it's not about comma, it's not about these things. You have people with fantastic understandings who are been denied the opportunity to come here. I would think definitely it plays a role as much as it plays a role in anything else. And in the court also, again, I am sure it plays a role. I don't think there can be any, you look a particular way, and you speak a particular way. Your name signifies something. So it is so attached that certainly these are things that play a role. And I don't think any of us can say that caste does not play a role in the way in which which the practice itself is set up, in which there have been multiple studies that have been done whether it's on the bench, whether it's in the bar, whether it's on the, even in the corporate sector. In fact, I don't know how truth is this, but I have read a study that said even your company amalgamations, right? It's mergers. Even mergers takes place. There have been studies that have said that even mergers take place on the. There are caste contexts that are there in mergers. So definitely it plays a role.
You can't escape it. You might want to escape it. But I think what, like Maitri said, a lot of the times markers give away too much. We should actually find ways of naming children. My grandfather tried very hard with my parents.
Aadhaar numbers.
Which is another mess. No, but my grandfather tried very hard to get my parents to not have a full second name spelt out. But he didn't succeed with that. And I think you can't run from this. And I think it's about everything that it signifies. And I've had judges ask me whether I come from a particular village in Udupi, and, you know, because the surname just indicates it, and you can't be anything else with a surname like that. You just can't. It's not possible. So I think there's too much of a giveaway. I think the giveaway is a little more in the High Court than it is in trial courts. Because in trial courts, a trial judge really can just about register your initials unless they have gone through the business of looking through your vakalatnama, and which they frankly don't have the time to do. So you are, you know, you have a, and I frankly really, really enjoy that anonymity when you are before a trial judge. They just don't have the bandwidth or the time, and that's refreshing, because then a lot more things, at least a few more things, your English and your whatever, your demeanor would still give you away in a lot of ways, as Maitri is indicated, and I think that's for sure. But I think a little bit more about the merits that you're on. Of course, the other problem is that you're a woman. So that, you might check the box on caste, but you might be like falling short on the gender. So it's a really, I think it's a very difficult scenario to navigate, and it's quite hard to articulate, I think, how you feel when if you perceive, or if you've come out of a courtroom and you know that you've just not been able to convince somebody because you're a woman speaking, which I think all of us, I would have faced on some occasions or the other, if at least a few times. So it's a very complex set of factors that you're constantly navigating. But I agree completely with Maitri when she says that there are people who are doing things that are far, far more difficult on an everyday basis. And in hindsight, when you look at people around you who have been doing, or even if you look at lawyers around you who have fought far more complex and difficult battles and have been brutally penalized by a system for it, right? And we know who these people are. Then you feel, I think you need to put yourself also in the larger context of you are a cog in a larger wheel, like Maitri was saying. You're delivering, or you're attempting to deliver. I can't even say you're delivering. You're attempting to deliver one small thing that you are hoping has some kind of impact and effect, and hopefully you think, or you'd like it to have some kind of ripple effect. But the bottom line is you are really tiny. Even in all my matrimonial practice, you are trying to make one very, very small difference in a very complex life history, right? So I mean, yeah, I think you the caste, class, gender question. You might want to, but I don't think you particularly can.
Now, one commonality between the three of you, or rather another commonality, is that the three of you are builders, right? You co-founded ALF, you have Dhwani Legal Trust, there's Manthan and AILAG. So what is it that made you bring into existence this new structure? Was it your disgruntlement with the existing structure, or was it ambition to make a better structure? So what caused, or what wormed into that brain of yours where you thought, okay, we should do something, we should build something of our own that could offer something else?
Connecting to the previous question, I think where I differ from both Maitreyi and Aarti in circumstance is that I don't have caste privilege, and I have people coming to me because I don't have caste privilege, right? So there are people who identify surnames and also come. I mean, they don't get my caste right, of course. All the people who have come to me because they think I belong to a certain caste, I don't belong to that caste. But they somehow feel, nyaya oduks kortare, that somehow that feeling is there. So that way I differ in circumstance from both Aarti and Maitreyi. But before I go into why Dhwani, etc., caste itself has been inescapable for me, although I am privileged in other ways. So there I try to fight very small battles in everyday life to fight that. And that's how I think Dhwani came about, because let's fight this together. I think that was the whole point of it, because as we were discussing earlier, one small battle that I tried to fight is by having an intercaste marriage. That's number one. Number two, we had a no ritual marriage, which is a mantra mangalya, which is a Kuvempu style of wedding, which means that I don't tie a Mangal Sutra, I don't do the feras, I don't do all that, much to the dismay and chagrin of my parents and others. But there are these small battles that I have been personally fighting. Of course, like I said, I have had mentors, I have had support along the and Professor Ravi Verma Kumar itself was instrumental in making me okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. So making me read Ambedkar and even understanding why we should be fighting those fights. So then that is the point at which I thought, okay, why am I doing this alone? There are several other people who are doing it despite all their challenges, despite having no privilege that I have also, some of it. So I thought, okay, I am extremely idealistic as a person and also ambitious. So I thought, okay, let's set up an organization. Instead of Ashwini going and doing something, let us have 10 other people, 12 other people do this, so that the scale is bigger, we reach larger people, we do this. The whole idea behind legal aid work right now is quite dismal, I will say. Lawyers are usually going out there saying, I will help you. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, not as allies really, but as people who will, I don't know, lift the white man's burden really. So I believe that we're trying to do that differently. And I believe that we're trying to be allies in the fight. And that was the ambition that caused to start Dhwani itself in the first place. And instead of, I mean, right now, how we're trying to do it is there are several challenges. I think Aarti and I went on forever when we were discussing what are the challenges that come in when it's with respect to fighting domestic violence cases. Like the system itself is so deaf when it comes to hearing the pleas of victims, because the first thought is that is in the judge's mind is doubt. Oh, really? Did that happen? Right, so we have victims of rape, we have victims of sexual abuse who come to us and we take them to a police station, and then the first thing they say is, oh, how do we know this has happened, right? So, I mean, that's a good question to ask, I guess. But the whole starting point being that I found it personally extremely frustrating when I used to do these cases alone. And then I heard the same stories from several other people, and I thought, okay, let's do this, let's build that wall and climb on it together. So one instance is, I mean, I know I shouldn't be saying too many anecdotes, but one instance is we had a client who walked in and said, I have filed an FIR for sexual harassment. And then at that point, she wanted to withdraw the case. Why? Because she felt bad because of the family circumstance of the accused. And when she wanted to do that, she went to the police and said, I don't want to pursue this anymore. And apparently the opposite lawyers and the police together told her, just write a statement saying, I misunderstood the touch. Right? So that is the system. Those are the cases we're dealing with every day. Now, I as a lawyer her lawyer would definitely not tell her to do that. But in order for her to get out of the system, there have to be certain creative ways. And then I realized I can't be the only one, like I don't have these creative ideas as one single person. And that's when I realized that building a team really helped. Even today, we have daily meetings, much to the dismay of some of my colleagues. We have daily meetings where for 1 hour, we sit and say, what do we do about that case? What do we do about this case? And that is extremely important because those cases don't have straightforward answers. Like, it is not as easy as, okay, she's been beaten up, come, let's file a DV case. Because when we had the session with Aarti also, Aarti was telling us, what is the whole point of filing just a DV case and letting it be? Because, again, the system is so broken that it is not easy to get a protection order. Even if we're showing them a police complaint and an NCR to say the husband held a machu or a knife and came and tried to attack me in the middle of the road. Now that itself is not sufficient, that also is not sufficient for the magistrate to pass a protection order. I'm not even asking for maintenance or custody or whatever else. So these are the frustrations that are coming up in everyday life, and I believe that to fight that, we need a better system. Again, this has come under several, I think, criticisms because they say there's already a legal aid authority. What are you doing additionally? Or are you trying to do something? Are you trying to do something differently and claim fame or whatever it is? But the whole point is, it is necessary that we create a system which is more robust in supporting victims. So like Aarti said, we are counselors, we are, I don't know, we also listened for hours together. Our meetings, I think in our office go on for 1 hour, 1.5 hours with some of our colleagues. And it's never ending. And it's mind-boggling how they do it, but yeah, it's still happening. So I think there is a need to set up those systems to support the victims, because generally the system is so broken that the victim itself undergoes so much trauma in the entire process of the legal processes. So that's why I thought Dhwani is going to be important. Yeah.
Dhwani gives a supplementary forum for victims, and
Yeah.
that it addresses that particular gap.
Yes, yes.
ಆಮೇಲೆ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರು.
I mean, I joined when I started, I joined ALF, which was already a kind of built organization with Aarti and others. So it's when we moved out of ALF, when we started Manthan Law. Actually, when we started, it was a time we joined the party, and then that is at that time that we decided to leave ALF also because of funding and everything, and we didn't want to be part of a funded organization. And I mean, I don't know, I don't think we thought about it much, about starting. But the idea was basically that, you know, you see something's wrong with the world, and you believe that you have certain skills that can be useful towards standing with people, and it's towards that really came to. And actually throughout, even when we built, and when we started, we were always associated with the party, associated with the unions. And we were also doing some amount of organizing work and all of that. So I think, in the sense that, the fact that collective power is better than collective coming together is better than standing alone is something that inherently comes with the fact that you're working with unions, you're working with with organizations. So I think, like Ashwini says, why you do it better when you do it with people who think like you, who have a similar political imagination of the world like you. So I think that's basically what it was. And I think also the idea is that, the idea of of what we are doing now is also to see that how is it that, it's not enough to say that, okay, I have privilege, but what can I do about it? Also to see how is it that people who are doing law, who have come from difficult situations, can also be part of these of the organization and be part of the broader fight. And that's the idea also of the organization, to say that and not to feel like you're alone. And I feel that many times we think that we are alone, we think differently, but more often than not, what I've realized is there are so many people, and all you need to do is to kind of have a conversation to realize that perhaps that the difference is not that much. But I think the idea of, at least of monthly law, is to really be able to be that space that says that we are standing with people, and people who actually see, like, for example, there are many workers who are dismissed, and we tell them that you do law, come and fight the thing. And this is something that people are doing. Many workers who have been dismissed, who have been targeted, who have been victimized, who actually do law to come and fight. And this is something that's very prevalent in the labor practice, that dismissed employees who actually fight for others. And I think that's the broader idea of kind of really fighting together.
Go back
22, I
yeah,
think.
ALF.
You want to work in a non-hierarchized space. You don't want to be told what to do. You want to be able to imagine for yourself. You want to be able to structure the work for yourself. You want to be in the company of people who push you to think differently, to push the boundaries. So it was a very selfish decision. I don't think I had grand ideas at all, none at all. It was very motivate. It was something that was like, I want to be in this kind of workplace, and then we will do some kinds of work together. And I think towards the time that I was leaving ALF, the idea that you have hopefully put together something that will continue to do what it does, and it doesn't require you or anyone else. If memory serves me right, I think all of a large team at ALF quit at a very short period of time. All of us, including Maitri, Clifton, me, Jiti, Lawrence, Arvind, a whole bunch of us left very, very quickly on the heels of each other. So in that sense, ALF lost, if you were to put it that way, its core team in a very, very short period of time. It seems to have done fine, So you don't, there is no, to me, there was no grand idea of, it was that I want to be in a particular kind of workplace, and I can't seem to find this kind of workplace. There is no place that will tell me that you do what it is that your heart desires, and you structure your work, and you don't have a boss, and you pretty much call the shots, and we all call the shots together, however many disagreements we might have. And so it was much more selfish than, I think, either Maitri or Ashwini in that sense, in terms of either Dhwani or ML. I don't think I had such, it was from inside, yeah.
So it was like the OG of startups. With no coffee machine, no ping pong table and things. I have a last question, and I'll open it out to the audience. What do you guys do for physical exercise? Do you think you do physical exercise, or just the stress is enough to knock off the calories?
No, I used to. I used to be actually pretty diligent about it. I've just dropped off the radar. Some gym and yoga. I mean, that used to be the plan. I fully intend to go back to it soon.
And I ask this not as a frivolous question, but largely because we are at a desk job, 9 to 5, 9 to 9 maybe. So, you know, we do need to do something to move. Ah. She runs Manthan Law.
I'd like to believe that running in court counts as running, but that's all the running I do. But I'd like to dance. I used to dance. I've learned dance for 12 years and practiced dance for 12 years, but never had the opportunity, rather, making excuses to go back to dancing. So I think this is a good moment. From tomorrow, I think I will go back. Thank you.
There's actually a senior counsel in the Karnataka High Court who I think walks 15,000, 20,000 steps a day. Even his meetings are in a park outside his office. And it's worked wonders. Maitri? Oh my God, really?
So I'm a big believer in exercising and doing something with, you know, which keeps your body physically active. I mean, I run, but that's the only thing I do. I wish I played many sports. I look at people who play basketball and all, and I think, oh, I should have done this. But I guess.
Paddle ball is the new...
Paddle, yeah. But I run, yeah.
I'm opening it out to the audience. Any questions? Thank you for being so patient. Nidhi?
Hi. So conventionally now, if a lot of us have started out litigating and we've worked at offices or we've worked at firms, when you look at pro bono work, or when you look at social lawyering for social justice, it's a white and then a black. So in the gray, there only exists so much. It's either firms maybe taking up pro bono cases, or I mean, you still have to focus on what's getting you the business, and then you maybe take a few cases here or there. Or it's places like Dhwani or Manthan where, you know, the idea of what you do is so attached to the fact that you want to bring about that change. So in your, you know, experiences, have you all seen a lot happening in this gray? As a lawyer whose intents are maybe reaching the sky, in terms of practice, how can you ensure that both coexist for people maybe who, you know, want to first build that financial independence, or like you all discussed, right? Not everyone has a privilege to go about it maybe in a way where they don't have to think about the money, or they don't want to, or maybe because I want to go to Europe someday, so I want to make that money. But at the same time, I also want to help. And so how can both of these things happen, like together, practically?
Actually, you know, I mean, something I didn't speak about earlier, but we actually don't do pro bono. People pay whatever they can, but people pay something. I mean, if somebody can't pay anything, it's a very, very rare case where people say you can't pay anything. Otherwise, people pay something or the other. And I think in some level, it's a kind of a principle thing to say that it's also for them is anything comes, because once we have people who have come and given this ragi and said this is your fees. So I think it's fine. But the point is to say, and I think somewhere this pro bono has also become a way of looking down about hierarchizing your cases, seeing which you give more importance to, and you know, what you choose to give you time to. So in principle, we actually don't do pro bono in that sense, in the very strict sense of taking no money. But and like I said, you know, because we don't have any kind of funding, we do both. We do cases as long as it does not move away from our political beliefs. I don't think. I mean, in comparison, I'm pretty sure we don't make as much money as others, but I think it's been all right. I suppose in that sense, so maybe some things, I don't know, I think the idea of the work itself has also made you're living in a particular way. So it perhaps is that, and so it doesn't feel like you're being, there's no deprivation of anything. So I suppose your whole idea kind of fits into that. So there is no feeling of denial in, I mean, at least I only speak for myself, I don't speak for anybody else. There's no feeling of active denial in that sense. So I think, I suppose there is some kind of a balance that is to be worked out in terms of the kind of work that we do and the kind of, and how much money is possible to make in that.
Really depends. So I'll speak of my private practice, right? Because when I was at ALF, this question did not arise. I think the thumb rule at my private practice was that I would not decline taking a case because someone could not afford the fee that I thought ought to be paid for it. So I think that I should be paid 2.5 lakhs to do this matter, and I will not do it because someone can't afford to pay me that fee. I have done in my private practice very, very, very few entirely pro bono matters. Because even as Maitreya said, even matters that I have done for like workers who are laying tiles or criminal appeals of a particular kind, it may not be the fee that I think, that in my mind, that I think the matter deserves, or I think that, oh my God, this is the quantum of work that has gone into it, so the fee should be X, but I'm only getting 10,000 rupees or whatever it might be. But that was the rule of thumb in my private practice. The difficulty is this. The difficulty is, how do you then strike a balance between matters that pay you enough for you to keep the ship running, even if you're not making too much over and above that, but you're still comfortable and you're okay? And how do you balance these two? The one thing that cannot happen, and this I think is really crucial, is that a matter that pays you, quote unquote, well enough, gets more of your time and dedication than a matter that does not. If you are in that position, please don't take the matter that does not pay you. To me, it's a simple and straightforward line. It cannot be that in this hope that you will take on a particular type of case because you think it's deserving of your time, or because you believe in the cause of it, or because you believe that the client requires a particular kind of assistance that they can't otherwise afford, etc. There are enough and more lawyers who will take up a matter to do it. So to me, that question is very, very clear. If the wakalat has been signed by me, then it will get as much or as little attention as any other matter whose file is sitting in my office. In fact, the chances are that if a matter is coming to you which has been in some way not been dealt well enough by a couple of counsels before you, you may need to put in a little bit more effort to course correct from a particular point, and therefore it may require a little bit more of your time and effort. But that's how I negotiated it in my private practice, that if you came to me, you could not afford the fee that I thought the matter deserves, the answer will never be no. The difficulty was in the balancing of doing these two things. There are some areas that are much shorter life matters, like criminal appeals in a sessions court, etc., have very, very short lives. They are going to end in 3 to 4, 6 months. Chances are, more than that is very, very unlikely that you're going to be, or maybe, okay, chalo, 10 months, So you know that, okay, this is going to take roughly this much time. But with trial matters and so on, you don't have that sense. You could be in a trial court for 7, 10 years, or however much longer. So you need to really ask yourself, that question, which is probably self-answered for, I think especially for Maitri. The two models are very, very different. Theirs is, Maitri's is tied to a particular political and philosophical and political thought. Mine is not. Mine is a question of, should I do this matter for somebody who can't afford to hire a lawyer paying lakhs of rupees? And if the answer to that question is yes, then will I be able to do it with the same level of commitment that I'm doing every other matter in my office? I can say that for the time that I did run my own practice, I do not immediately recall ever having said no to somebody who said, I can't pay your fee. So I have done a bunch of matters, but like Maitri said, none of them were for 0 rupees. They might have been for 5,000 rupees, they might have been for 10,000 rupees, they might have been for less, more, whatever it might be. But it's been rare. I might have done very, very few which were entirely pro bono. Maybe some juvenile justice matters, where kids are coming from very, very difficult circumstances or something like that.
Varadara?
In terms of the conversation around privilege, right? You can have caste privilege, you can have class privilege, you can have economic privilege, but I think something that ma'am spoke about as well is your gender is something that does play a role. So I wanted to understand in terms of, to what extent does your gender affect your access, not just in terms of appearing in court and making submissions in court, but also in terms of how seriously or not seriously a client takes you, or how much trust a client plays on you? Because of course, like, I can come from the highest of caste and highest of financial backgrounds, but like, my gender is still something that is a very, very big role-playing factor in terms of how I am viewed within the system.
A lot of people do come to women lawyers because we are smart and we won't be as expensive. In other words, it's cheap legal service. So yeah, take it away.
Also pretty face while talking. Sorry, joke, big joke. I did not mean that. Yeah, please. Edit. Pretty face. No, sorry, but we can, I think all of us go on for hours about how gender affects our practice. I think we can go on and on. There is no question of how many days we've actually spoken about how a judge has perceived me because of my gender, or how a client has refused to speak to me and has asked instead for a man to speak to. And I've had colleagues who have said I got a certain interim order because I'm a woman. So these are things that we deal with. I think we can go on and on about it. Also, why it is extremely important for us to create these spaces. I think that's why I'm extremely glad that Nidhi has started something like this, and it's very important for us to really bond over how the system is excluding so many of us because of all these markers. And it's important to build this solidarity. So there is no question of, oh, does this happen? It happens every single day. I think I have done it, and again, I keep doing these things for kicks. Like, I do little things. Like, so earlier we used to have a lot of shops outside the High Court building, and all these stalls. And all you see are men standing there and smoking all the time, actually. So I don't know. I've seen more people standing there than inside the High Court so many times. So, and little things I used to do is I used to just butt in, stand, and chill with them. So these are like little thrills. I don't know how effective, maybe it's my own satisfaction that I'm trying to draw out of this whole thing. But I think it's important for us to really butt in everywhere and actually occupy space. So one way in which, I mean, in Dhwani at least, we are more women than men. We are 8 lawyers. Yeah, I think we're more women than men. And I think that is a strong point for us, because women actually come to us because we are women and women-led. So that's important. So I think it's very important to create these spaces, because there are enough and more spaces dominated by the male gender. So that's one thing. Secondly, I think a small attempt was also to start a blog. So in fact, some of my colleagues are writing for it. It is to start a blog for women lawyers. Nidhi has written a brilliant piece in it, and little stories that show how women lawyers are actually navigating these spaces in their own little ways and winning these small fights every day. So I think that's very important. It's very easy for us to just say, oh my God, can't do it anymore. It is such a dominated setup. I think it's time we actually occupy that space, and that's what we are trying to do, I think, every day. Despite, I think initially these spaces were created to just come and vent. The first session, definitely, I think we had women lawyers coming and just venting about how dominated the space is. But I think later on, of course, we have been, I think, structuring these very, very beautifully by Nidhi and others, also other senior women colleagues of the bar. So I think this is very important. Our own interventions in different ways to actually occupy space. Yeah.
I think, I don't know about clients. I mean, it's not something I have personally, or maybe it happened and they never came back, so I don't know. But definitely, I think in courts also it does. It is something that is a factor, and it's not only from male judges. It's equally from also women judges. I mean, the person on the other end is not really need not necessarily be male, and that's something for us also to think about, because because in some sense it's how. I mean, one would assume that if you're a woman, then you look at it differently. But it doesn't. I don't think that necessarily is a relevant factor in that sense. So, and that only got me to think that definitely gender is a very very important aspect when it comes to access to spaces. There is a recent study of the Bar Council, I think, which says some 15 or 20% or something like that you have women advocates. It's a very small percentage, and if you're finding it difficult in a cosmopolitan city like Bangalore, one can only imagine what it must be like in the taluks or in other places. It must be very, very difficult. So I think it's very important that we also look at how it is that we are able to stand in solidarity with others who are similarly placed, and further with people who are with additional levels of kind of discrimination. So how is it that we are able to bring in gender? Definitely it is, but just think about a person who has gender, caste, class against them, how difficult that would be, and how it's important for us to actually be able to offer solidarity to people across. And that's something I think that it's for all of us to kind of keep doing as we go forward.
Maiti?
So this question is for all of y'all. You'll have been continuously fighting against broken systems. So has there been any point where you have felt very overwhelmed, or you felt like giving up, saying, nothing's changing? Because I have felt that in my experience. Like, has there been a point where you've been like, whatever we do, nothing is changing? And how have you kind of dealt with that or overcome that experience?
You might feel, I think the lowest points that I have felt have been not succeeding in a particular case or a particular set of circumstances, where I feel outraged that despite the efforts made, that you did not end with the result that you ought to have. But I can't say that there have been times that I have been overwhelmed with the idea that, I mean, I choose not to do it now because I wasn't happy with the particular typecasting into a particular role of doing a particular kind of work. But not because I was overwhelmed with the idea that, I think the reason for the not feeling overwhelmed is because I have constantly reminded myself that you are tiny. You are so small in this entire madness of what is going on, that to actually think that you are able to overhaul a system has a very peculiar sort of arrogance attached to it, in my view. So I think you just, you do it one matter at a time, and you hope that you win more than you lose, and you sit with a quiet drink on the day that you lose and you say, I did the best that I could, and there is something to be done, there is an appeal to be drafted, so you can wallow for a short while. You can feel some self-pity. It's my gender. It's a bad judge. Did not get this completely stunning fine points that I was making. Combination of all of those, whatever it might be. And you get on with it. And you fight another day, and hopefully you win another day. And I think this is the way that I've approached it. So I have to say, there are very I mean, it's not like you don't feel the frustration of it, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it's not frustrating. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's extraordinarily frustrating. But it's frustrating in those moments. It's not frustrating as a life sort of approach or anything. It's that point of time at that moment. And those moments are hard. I'm not downplaying those or anything. Those are difficult, and they are annoying, and they are frustrating, and they are upsetting, and they are anger, and you have a whole range of emotions. But it's that moment, and I'm very sure that I think this is the only way to do it. Maybe, I don't know, Maitri, Ashwini might have better ways.
No, I completely agree. I don't think there's ever been a day where I felt overwhelmed and said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I don't think that's ever happened. I think, yeah, there have been challenging times, yes. In fact, in one case that we argued for maintenance, we see, we look for the order, and in the order sheet, we see a maintenance of rupees 1,000 granted per month. Imagine 1,000 granted per month, like they can testify to it. And we actually, okay, we gave them the benefit of the doubt and said, maybe there's a typo. Tomorrow we will go check. Yeah, maybe it's 10,000. They put the comma in the wrong place. So there are these extremely frustrating moments. And it's actually happened. It's not that I'm exaggerating. But I don't think there's ever been a day, because of the work, there's been an overwhelming effect and saying, okay, I can't do this anymore. But there have been challenging times, definitely. One being such instances. Two being, while running an organization itself, there are challenges to it in terms of matching your expectations and your team's expectations. Now, it's a great match if all of us are on the same page. But then sometimes it can so happen, because we are so different individuals belonging to different age groups, spaces, etc. There can be a mismatch, and those instances have been challenging. But I don't think I've ever woken up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I think every single day when we don't get an interim order, the next day we go and fight harder. I think that has been the logic. I mean, there's no logic to that. Again, it could be just delusion and maybe madness. But that's how I think we've been doing it. Yeah.
So somebody once told me that, to be able to get disillusioned is a very privileged position to have. Because I can say I don't want to do this work anymore, but people are still going to continue to be exploited. Those who are victims of structures of oppression will continue to be under that. So it is to be able to think that way is something that speaks to where we stand ourselves. Having said that, I don't think, the battles are very large. There is one story of, there is one person who's what is that, breaking that small portion of the mountain, and then somebody comes and asks him, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to break this mountain. If not today, this is how I start. So I think, all of us are chipping away at parts of the system. We may not, I don't think any of us are going to change the society, and you're not going to have inequality. But we're all chipping away. And the fact of the matter is we're all benefiting from people before us who have actually done this, and who have actually stood up against oppressive systems and exploitation and said, no, this is wrong. And it is the fruit, we are kind of enjoying the fruits of that fight. I suppose in that sense, I don't know if we can afford to be disillusioned, given the fact that society is in such a, there are so many issues that are there in society itself. Having said that, definitely one feels bad and angry and annoyed about what happens within court itself, which is why, at least for me, it's very important that I don't do I don't only do litigation. We also work with people. We work with the organization. We work with unions, and so that you have a fight. So litigation, the fight within court is one part of the larger battle that you have fighting. You have fights on the street. You have fights in other avenues. So I think that's very important, and that's something that actually gives us a lot of hope, because you're with people who have that hope, who believe that we will win. And I think that gives you inspiration like nothing else.
Caroline?
Thanks, Nidhi. You might have answered this question, this is for all three of you all, but just to put it in a gist, what drives you all every day to go back to what you're doing? Because quite clearly it's not lucrative, financially also it's not like you're making lots and lots of money. Personally also you all must have taken a hit back home, with your families. A lot of time is spent into this, energy, all of that. It's not like your regular corporate job. So what is it that makes you go back?
I'm replying from my earlier avatar. It's great fun. And I think the one thing that none of us have said up till now, at least I feel, it's fun. And when you win, the times that you win, and hopefully, and I'm sure Maitri and Ashwini are winning far more than they lose. It's just wonderful. I don't know how to describe it. I think there are a lot of things that we don't say about lawyering. Lawyering is in litigation and in court is a lot of performance, right? Of course, it is the performance of what you know and how you're going to say what you say and what you wake up and decide you're going to do in court today, etc., etc. But I have enjoyed it thoroughly, irrespective of what kind of work that I have done or who I have chosen to represent or whatever it is. So I think you need to concede that there is a certain element that you thoroughly enjoy about it, which is why you do it. That's one part of it. The second part of it is that you do hold a particular sort of belief, or you're doing something, or rarely, and this is rare, that you do something completely new. Like when I think like a whole injection of energy came in when I filed that first writ petition in Karnataka for a termination of pregnancy. We didn't get that order, but it was the first time it had been done. And then you see, over a certain period of time, and an entire ripple effect of lawyers just taking up these matters because you have succeeded in the first 5 that you've done, and some orders are uploaded somewhere, and suddenly an entire bunch of lawyers have woken up to the fact that, oh my God, this can be done and we should do it. And you sit back and say, good job. You're not getting some accolades for it, no one is patting you on the back for it, but it is deeply satisfying. So I can't take away from the satisfaction that it gives you. You can't, and I'm not sure that you should be doing it if it doesn't bring you a certain level of joy and satisfaction at one level. And like I said, I mean, I don't think there have been some incredible, things that I have not been able to do or so on because I picked a particular route and stuff like that. So the enjoyment is one thing, and I think you need to have a really deep belief that of something that Maitri said, that I am the recipient, and the way that I choose to live today is in part thanks to a women's movement from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that I reap the benefits as a single woman today from a movement that did something extraordinary at a time that it had nothing and was fighting perhaps structures of patriarchy that were unimaginable. Now, have those structures gone away? No. But have they been able to make a serious dent? Yes. And then I feel that you need to in some way acknowledge that that is a part of your life. So you need to enjoy it, and you need to have some belief that comes from somewhere else. I don't know if without both of these that it's possible. At least for me, it wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah, I don't have much to say except I agree with Aarti. There's a certain thrill to solving a problem. I think personally for me, forgetting all the social justice angle, the human rights angle here, the problem is so complex and is before you, and you really want to do something to actually find something that will work. So I think for me personally, it's been to solve that something that's in front of me. But the work, it's so inevitably happened that something that is in front of me has entangled itself with caste, gender, class, etc. So there is, so making it even more important and urgent for solving. So I think for me personally, I'm someone who likes to solve something, and all these, sorry, I might be sounding like from the outside, I'm meddling with somebody's lives and trying to play around, but no, sorry if it's sounding that way. But clearly, like for me, I think it's some problem before me, and I really want to do my everything to solve it. I think personally, I think that's the drive. Yeah.
I think this is the IIT that you didn't go to. I mean, I don't have much to add. Just one thing that you look at, Dr. Ambedkar had submitted actually to the Constituent Assembly what his in the state and minorities, his original, I guess, what was closer to his heart. And in that he speaks about right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that's actually there in the draft. And I think that's all it is. We want a better society so that everybody will be happy, so that we will also be happy. We want to break down these structures of patriarchy, caste, gender, whatever, and class, so that people can be happy. You can be equal, you can be free, you can be happy. Ultimately, that's what really drives us. And I think that's all that it is. It's what makes us. It makes you happy. Anyway, something or the other is going to make you sad. Anyway, something or the other is going to, even if you have a lot of money, something or the other is going to make you sad. Might as well do what you want and be happy.
We are at the end of this amazing session. Thank you so much, all three of you. This was really inspiring personally for me, and an extremely candid conversation. And a lot of the questions that the three of you discussed also applies to, I think, everyday litigation. Why go into litigation every day? Why go into court every day, when you're bashed around? I think Maitri was telling me this before the session, where she was talking about how the court or the judicial system is just a replication of the larger society we live in. So all these other inequities and injustices, gender or otherwise, that we do see as a practicing lawyer are nothing but, you know, what is reflected from society. So thank you so much for taking out time on a busy Saturday evening. And okay, two of you very busy, one of you is just there. And yes, the one thing that I think we should all take back is why do what you're doing? Because you enjoy it. What is the point of going through life with misery? So litigate because it's fun. Do corporate law because it's fun. Don't do law because it's fun, right? Do whatever you want because you enjoy it. Life is too short otherwise. Thank you so much. Good evening.